What is good, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video, and in this one, I'm going to break down what's going on with Tesla stock and what you should be watching for going forward. I'm also going to talk about what's going on with SPY, Nvidia, the QQQ, and many other tickers out there, and break down why tomorrow is going to be a very crazy day as we have Jerome Powell speaking, with lots of big data dropping. We have another Fed speaker, and also some other pieces of information that will cause the market to move. So I'm going to break down how this may affect Tesla stock, what you should be watching for, and why tomorrow is going to be big. But before I do anything like that, though, let me just mention a couple of things. Firstly, I am not a financial planner. Make sure you take none of this as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please smash the like button if you want to see more videos like this. It not only benefits me, it benefits the entire Tesla community as a whole. And finally, don't forget about the Moomoo link. The offer ends very soon. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks with the $100 cash reward. The offer ends in just 2 days, so check it out before they run out. With that out of the way, let's get on with the video. All right, Tesla was up about 2.41% for the day, holding up quite nicely, outperforming the market, and SPY just barely closed the green, despite SPX closing just barely in the red. And overall, the market managed to hold up despite the hawkish things that Jerome Powell said. Before I talk about the technicals and what's going on, let me just mention that Jerome Powell was being quite hawkish again today. The guy was at the ECB forum with many other central bankers, and they ended up talking about how there is a possibility of a recession, but they mentioned that it's likely going to be very mild, and the people don't have way too much to worry about for that. They were trying to calm everyone down. But Powell still insinuated that the economy right now is way too strong. The Fed has a lot of work to do, and inflation is too hot. He said inflation is not dropping as fast as the Fed expected. He mentioned that there's a lot of work to be done, and there could be 2 more rate hikes to come moving forward. He also mentioned that the rate hikes have not been as restrictive for long enough to see the true effects of them on the economy. Now, I'm going to be very brief with this, but just know that Powell has been very hawkish. If you want more details about Powell, I released another video like earlier today about what he said. For now, this is very important, and the reason I'm talking about this is because Powell is going to be speaking again. So he spoke today in the morning, and he's going to be speaking again. But when is he going to be speaking? At 11:30 p.m. if you are on the West Coast, and 2:30 a.m. on the East Coast. Powell is going to be giving another speech. So today at 11:30 p.m. for Wednesday and 2:30 a.m. for Thursday morning, Powell is going to be giving his speech for the East Coast. So please be ready for this. When he speaks, the market may move, and what he says could cause the market to gap down or make a very, very interesting shift depending on what he says. If you look at SPY, for example, just on like the 5-minute chart, you could see this thing was just trading like crazy, back and forth today. We got a bit of a drop when the market opened. This thing came all the way down to 434, pumped all the way up to almost 438, then came all the way back down very sharply as Powell made some hawkish comments. Then after that, the market just traded sideways and just continued from there, barely getting a pump at the very end to close green as we saw lots of orders trying to get filled. And now it's going to be interesting based off what he says. After Powell speaks tomorrow or today, but depending on where you are in the world, very early in the morning or late at night, we have more data dropping out for Thursday at about 8:30 a.m. We have the GDP numbers coming out. That's going to be important for the Fed's policies. We have initial jobless claims coming out, more GDP numbers, and then after that, we have Bostic from the Fed giving a speech. So we have a Fed speaker, lots of data dropping, initial jobless claims, which is going to be very important. We want all of these pieces of data to be very close to expectations. I'll be back tomorrow morning to report on how this is going. Initial jobless claims is going to be one of the biggest things, and needs to be very close to expectations, if not a little bit lower. The market is still running on the idea of there being a soft landing. Is it possible? Well, that's up to you guys to decide. It really depends on so many different factors, but I don't really see it happening that way. Anyways, going forward, don't forget we have PCE coming out for Friday, and all this data is going to be important for that. Now, when it comes to earnings that are coming out, just very, very quickly, we have Micron coming out for today with BlackBerry, and then we have Nike coming out for tomorrow and Rite Aid. The biggest one's going to be Nike, so watch that very carefully. And when it comes to Tesla, we had some big headlines. The news is coming out that's very positive about Tesla. They're saying that Tesla should be delivering another record performance in China. And also overall, we're expecting about 155,000 deliveries just in China. And finally, another 448,000 deliveries for the overall world for Tesla for the second quarter. That's what Deutsche Bank said alongside many other analysts. That would be very awesome if Tesla did achieve that, breaking another record. I made another video about this with more details if you're interested in that. It was recorded just before this one. Tesla ran ads for Google Ads, which is very, very good for them. This could help them get more business. And there was a lot of talk about Tesla abandoning its Spanish Gigafactory idea. This is still a possibility. I'm not going to rule this out entirely, but you have to understand the context and whether or not this is true. So I don't fully trust if this is 100% true, as lots of reports are saying this. There has been reports that came out in the past that were not real. So just be careful with that. But if this truly is the case, you always need to know what the context of the situation is. If I was Tesla and I found out that classified or confidential information was leaked involving a gigafactory, I'd probably not be happy either. And we need more data to be very, very convinced. Now, because this data was very confidential, Tesla's likely not going to say way too many details about it, but it's worth noting. So please be prepared anyways for Tesla to come back maybe in the future and maybe discuss this moving forward. But we don't know for sure. So I'm just not going to really like hold anyone accountable or like really, throw any shade at anyone just right now. And we'll just wait and see what happens moving forward with their gigafactories. For now, when it comes to the different models, we have some very good news. The Model X is a little bit hot right now, starting to go up again in inventories, but everything else is looking very nice. The Model 3 is dropping in inventories. The Model Y inventories and Model S's are just very, very low at these levels, which shows us that there are a lot of buyers coming back and Tesla's starting to reduce their inventories. This is a good news for the price. This is very good news for Tesla, and Tesla should give us a pretty decent quarter as a result of this. When it comes to the news and the data affecting Tesla, you can see the price-price ratio starting to bounce again, showing some strength for Tesla. And notice how not too long ago, okay, all of a sudden, all these different analysts and banks were turning bearish on Tesla, saying sell your Tesla shares, secure profits on Tesla. Many of them were saying that at the same time. It was Wedbush, Barclays, Morgan Stanley, DZ Bank saying to sell Tesla. Goldman Sachs was neutral, right? Now, all of a sudden, Deutsche Bank is saying buy Tesla. The sentiment is shifting right now. And it looks like a lot of these guys got some good deals at these dips if they were buying those dips, despite telling someone or everyone else something else. For the daily basis, Tesla tends to be green, 48% of the time on Thursdays. Overall, it doesn't matter as much because I think this is going to be a very special Thursday with all the data coming out and also Tesla approaching deliveries dates. And then historically, we tend to do better during the second and fourth hours of the trading day. Watch those very carefully if you are trading Tesla. Now, something else that's interesting is on Monday, we saw another increase in the short interest. We saw another 60 million Tesla shares shorted, and shorts are still piling into Tesla. And this could fuel a short squeeze if Tesla starts to pump even more as shorts start to cover. Just a possibility, just worth noting. So I'm very excited to see what happens after deliveries. If Tesla's short interest is a little bit hot and the deliveries come out very strong, Tesla could squeeze even harder. It's just a real possibility. So this makes me both excited, but also very interested to see how it goes, because at the same time, who knows what on earth these shorts are thinking. They could have some insider information or not, who knows. But anyways, I'm not too worried about that. The volume is pretty decent, very close to average, and the short volume on Tesla is continuing to drop a little bit, which is gaining some strength for the price. Now, anyways, with all that data in mind, let's talk about the markets. Let's talk about Tesla. I'm going to be very short with this video, at least the ending part, because I have a limited Wi-Fi today. My Wi-Fi died, so I'm using a hotspot. Things should be better by tomorrow anyways. For Tesla, this is what the levels look like if you look at this from the scalping standpoint. I have very specific levels that I often look at. But if you close the levels, right, you want to look at this on a bigger time frame, there's a more simple way of looking at this. Basically, I think the 30-minute is the one I'm going to use. The 30-minute time frame shows us that Tesla is very close to getting a nice golden cross right here. But here's the thing. We have to break this major resistance around this 260 area. If Tesla wants to turn very bullish, let's break 260. We have some strong resistance right over there. If it breaks down, we have support around this 254 to 255 area. And if that fails us, there's 252.5 is the next major support, very close to where our 50 EMA happens to be. If that fails us, watch 250. If it breaks below that, it can turn a lot more bearish. So watch these support and resistance levels very carefully. Now that you know these areas, if 260 breaks, that's a lot of potential to start flying. And I do believe Tesla has a lot of potential looking at the potential inverse head and shoulder structure. I'm going to use the 1 hour for that actually. The potential inverse head and shoulders structure is developing. There's also a possible cup and handle forming on Tesla that could turn quite bullish. There's this unfilled gap at 266. So that's a point to look at if Tesla does break and hold above 260. There's this 266 unfilled gap. And finally, we have this imbalance up here. So like right here, there's this imbalance which would cause the algos to push it towards this. If we break above 270, it's going to take this thing to 275. So those are some important levels to look at for the bulls. But for now, we need confirmation that's going to be a break above 260. Now, I'm not too sure how tomorrow is going to go because of Jerome Powell. He could slow the market down as the guy has been very hawkish lately. This is all intentional, and he could slow the markets down more. So be very careful when we open up, okay? By the time the market opens, however, we're going to get a lot of data too. We have the GDP numbers and initial jobless claims. This could cause a lot of volatility. I don't really know what the numbers are going to look like, so we have to be careful. There's a chance Tesla could gap down because of Jerome Powell and then start pumping later on. Regardless of what happens, though, even if Tesla does kind of like gap down or something, I think there's a good chance that Tesla is going to eventually start pumping quite nicely by the time we get to Friday. I think by Friday close, Tesla's going to start pushing, and I think Tesla could make its way up to about 260 plus to 266 very soon. If that breaks, we could see the 270s on Tesla. And I think it could happen as soon as Friday. I think there's a good chance Tesla's going to pump and get to at least 266. But first, it could drop a little bit because of Jerome Powell. So just keep this in mind. Why do I think Tesla may pump? Because when we approach these big events, especially like earnings or maybe like deliveries, Tesla tends to do very, very well. Tesla tends to pump very nicely as we approach the events because of lots of hype, lots of FOMO, and lots of buyers that step in because of high expectations. So watch this carefully, watch implied volatility, and be careful with those options, especially if you're trying to hold them afterwards. And I just want to note, once again, watch support and resistance. Tesla could slow down in the morning because of Powell, but it has a good chance of rebounding later on Thursday, if not by Friday, and starting to push up and squeeze more. Now for SPY, watch resistance around this 438 area. Now, the thing about this is there's a potential inverse head and shoulders developing as well. Some people can interpret this as another cup and handle information being dictated by like Apple and Tesla, which is true. But we need confirmation. There's a gap that's unfilled at 439, and then we also have 440 as stronger major resistance, followed by 442. If we manage to make our way up above 438, there's a good chance it's going to fly for 440. If it rejects off this area, we're going to be watching support around 435, then 433. If that breaks, 432 or lower could come all the way down to 430. What do I think is going to happen? We may slow down in the morning because of Powell and all the data, and then we could continue going from there. If you get a break above 438, it's going to likely fill the gap to 439. All right, so watch these levels very carefully. Watch support and resistance. I can't predict this one perfectly or very closely because it really depends on the data. I can't really predict that. So please, please, please be very conscientious and be very careful nonetheless. For the QQQ, you're going to be watching these very important levels. So specifically on the QQQ, let me just fix one little thing. Give me 1 second. Anyways, for the QQQ, if this thing wants to turn bullish, it needs to break above 366 to 366.5. If it breaks that, it's going to fly for 368 to potentially 370. If it breaks down, you're going to be watching this 365 area. If that fails us, 363 is going to be key for this thing. If that fails, it's going to make its way down to 362-ish and then 360 after that. And if that fails us, there's 357.5 as another major support. So watch all these levels very carefully. Specifically, what do I think is likely to happen? It may kind of slow down because of Powell, then try to bounce intraday and start pushing. So we're going to be watching all these different levels carefully. However, because of Tesla potentially squeezing, because of Apple holding up nicely, there's a good chance that the QQQ may continue to hold up and try pushing up nicely. There's a good chance of that. So we're going to be watching this carefully just to make sure. Now, anyways, let's talk about a couple of other tickers very briefly and very shortly. For AMD, it's basically stuck on the 30-minute time frame between the 50 and the 200 EMAs. If it's bullish, watch 112. A break above that could take it to 115. If it's bearish, watch 109. If that fails us, watch 107, then 105. It all depends on the data and etc. For tomorrow, we could slow down with Powell and pop afterwards, depending on how that goes. For NEO, this is looking very nice for a setup because NEO is continuing to hold up. There's a bearish divergence developing, so maybe it slows down just a little bit, but it could always try to pump one more time because of deliveries that's coming out. NEO has a very, very strong guidance. It's going to most likely do well, in my opinion, looking at what they're saying and how confident they are alongside many investors. So we'll just have to wait and see on this. But like I said before, there's potential in NEO to push. If it breaks 9.56, watch 9.7, then $10. If it breaks down, watch 9.3, $9, then 8.75 after that. For Netflix, If Netflix is bullish, you're going to be watching this thing try to break this resistance right about here. Basically, it's trying to hold above 430. If it manages to do so, it has the potential to push up to get very close to about 440, if anything. If it breaks below 430, you're going to be watching this 426 support, 424, 420, then potentially 416. Watch it carefully and see what happens with Powell speaking. For let's just talk about the Nasdaq. There's not much else going on with it. Potential head and shoulders, but not a guarantee. And let me also add that on the 1 hour time frame, this thing is still holding up nicely. There's a potential inverse head and shoulders at the same time, and there's this unfilled gap up here around this like 13,600 area. So it could come down. Maybe it slows down because of Powell in the morning, retests the 50. It is holding above the 50 on the 1 hour time frame, the 50 EMA. It could bounce off that and start pushing up one more time because of, once again, Tesla and many of these other tickers pushing it up. It could also be because of other factors such as the market holding up nicely. Maybe we get a decent PCE report, and it could be because of other factors. But just watch that level very carefully. SPX also has this unfilled gap at 4,400. Maybe this thing tries to hold above the 50 and starts breaking. If it breaks above 43.90, basically this entire area, it has the potential to push up to that unfilled gap. If not, we're just going to watch and see how it holds above the 50. For the dollar, there's not much else going on. It's just kind of like a little bit green, very manipulated. Typically, this should be down on a day like this, but because of what Powell said, the hawkish things caused the dollar to just turn a little green. Coinbase is looking more bullish from a technical standpoint. It's just continuing to make higher highs and higher lows, but we're going to be watching levels for confirmation. If it breaks above the 72 zone, which has some resistance, it has the potential to fly up to almost 75. If it breaks 75, watch 77.64 and potentially $80. If it breaks down, watch 70 as support. If that fails us, it's going to come down to 66. If that fails us, there's 64, then 62, and 60. Right now, I'm in the middle because it depends on Powell. Maybe it slows down a little bit, retests 70, then bounces. But there's still a good chance of this thing holding up because of how bullish it's looking on the bigger time frames. So honestly, I don't know with Powell and all the data. I don't know if it's going to slow down a bit. We're just going to watch it carefully depending on what the data looks like. And then it could bounce. If it keeps going, then watch these resistance levels, and it has lots of potential to continue to do so. For Alibaba, this is looking kind of weak on the 1 hour time frame. It looks very distributive, looking at this potential head and shoulders that's developing. If it breaks below 84, it's going to likely sink down to the low 80s. If it manages to rebound, it has to get above the 50 at about 85.85. So basically $86, get above 86. And this thing has some potential to rebound, but for now it's looking weak, and there's a good chance it may slow down. So be careful with Powell speaking, and also some more restrictions from China that just were announced. To be careful with that. For Aapl, if this thing turns bullish, watch this thing at 190. If it breaks 190, we're going to be watching this thing fly above 192 plus, 192.5, and also around 192. If it breaks down and fails to break 190, since we have major resistance, watch 188.5, 187.6, 186.5, and then 186 as support. It may slow down because of Powell in the morning, start to trade sideways, then maybe bounce later on. If it breaks 190 plus, it has a lot of potential to push up, so watch that carefully. For Nvda, this thing is stuck between the 50 and the 200 EMA on the 30-minute time frame. It is still stuck. If it breaks below 411, watch this thing come all the way down to this previous resistance, which is now going to be supported at 406. If 406 fails us, watch 401, 400, and 396. If it turns bullish, if it wants to break out, watch 416 as a very important level. This could cause this thing to break out if it breaks this. If it breaks the 200, it's going to try to push above 416 to 418. Then if it manages to do so, it's going to hit 421 plus, then potentially 425, and even higher levels like 430. So watch that very carefully. There is this important zone around 427, which could get filled soon. Could this be like an inverse head and shoulders? It's a possibility, but there's also like a head and shoulders here. So it's like a mix of two structures. If anything, it doesn't matter too much about like head and shoulders or anything. Just watch the 15 to 200. That's what's going to matter more. Which one does it break? Which direction does it go in? Does it break below the yellow line, or does it get above the red line right over here? Watch that carefully. It's the most simple way I could tell you. For Google, same thing is going on for Google. We're going to be watching which direction it breaks, and it is currently above the 200 EMA on the after hours. If it manages to break above this, okay? If it manages to continue to push up, we have this unfilled gap all the way up here around this 24.25 level, and it does look like an accumulation is forming with a bullish divergence. If it keeps going, we could get a bullish cross on the 50 and the 200, which could cause this thing to make its way up back up to this like 27 area. There's also a possible inverse head and shoulders forming here. I'm not really counting on it though, because we are getting some bullish confirmation on it. We have this bullish triangle that's starting to play out. But it's going to depend on what Jay Powell causes. Does he cause the market to slow down? If he does, Google could make its way back up down to about 120. If it breaks below 120, which is where our 50 EMA is, it has potential to come all the way back down to 119, then potentially 117. So watch support and resistance carefully. We'll see what Jerome Powell causes, but from a technical standpoint, Google's looking a little bit better, and it looks like there's an accumulation forming. It has some potential to try to push up because of that. So watch it carefully. We will see what Powell says. For Amazon, watch this thing try to hold above the 50 EMA around this 129.3 area. If it breaks that, watch 130, 131.5, 132.5, and potentially 135 after that. If Amazon fails us, watch this thing retest 128, 127, and then 124 after that, which is where we have this level. 124 is probably going to be tested if it breaks this imbalance. If it breaks below 127, Amazon's going to get rug pulled because of this imbalance down here. There's an imbalance down here around the 125s, and it's likely not going to just base there. It may see the 124 area because that's where it reversed the last time. So 124 to 124 to 125, will be tested if Amazon breaks 127. If Amazon holds above it and it holds above the 50 EMA at 129, it has the potential to make its way all the way back up into the low 130s, all the way up to like 131.5 to 132. So we're just going to have to wait and see, be patient on it. We will see what Jerome Powell and the data causes. So just be patient. I will report this in the morning tomorrow. Last but not least, for Meta, this thing is above the 50 EMA. If it turns bullish, watch this thing at 287.5 and then 290 after that. If 290 breaks, it's going to turn very bullish. That's the most important resistance. It's going to push all the way up closer to like 300. If this thing ends up breaking down, you're going to be watching support at the 50 EMA around this 285 level. If that fails us, watch 284, 283.36, 282.5 as some supports, and then there's 280 and then 277 after that, and much lower levels. I'm in the middle with Meta because there's a bearish divergence form, but hasn't really broken down much. And on the 4-hour time frame, this thing is still trying to hold up. The reason why I'm not too sure about how Meta is going to move is because it depends on Powell and all these different factors. But it does look like it might gap down a little bit lower, and then try to push up. We will have to just wait and see what happens with Powell. If he's very hawkish, this thing could break all the way back down to the low 280s, if not back down to like 277. So just be careful with Powell. Who knows what he's going to say? And until then, I will see you guys very soon for the next video. But last but not least, for Tesla, let me just close all these different levels. Tesla, to me, looks bullish overall. It may cool off a little bit because of Powell retest like the mid 250s, if not the low 250s, but it should bounce and start pushing based off the technicals. Technicals look bullish on it. I think it's going to likely make its way all the way back up to 260 plus, if not 270 by the time we get to Friday close, in my opinion. I think there's a good chance this is going to do it. I think there's going to be lots of hype and FOMO associated with deliveries. So be ready for Tesla. And with that said, thank you all so much for listening. Tesla to the moon, as the long term is still incredibly bright. And peace out.